Hi, welcome to my workshop again. Sometimes I get asked, what tools do you need to just get started in Leathercraft? If you've never done anything like that before, what are the absolute basics just to get you started? If you look at any Leathercraft website or catalogue, there's a very large selection and it can be a bit overwhelming. So I'm hoping that this video will shed a bit of light on the absolute basics just to get you going. And then once you get going, you can add to your collection along the way. So I hope you find this useful. Okay, let's start with cutting leather. This would be the traditional cutting knife, the Damascus knife, I think it's called. I'll be honest, I've never used this in my life. It's bloody lethal looking, for one thing. You'd also have to be very good at sharpening it, and I'm sure if you've learnt to use it properly, I'm sure it's very good. Like I said, I've never used it. What I do use is one of these, and I find it's everything I need. So these couple of quid at your hardware store. So that's cutting out the way. Okay, an important bit of kit would be a set of stitching irons, or stitching chisels as they're sometimes called. The set is important to have because if you're setting your stitching holes around a curve, you need to be using the smaller ones, obviously. You can spend an awful lot of money on a set like that. This set was it was under £10, and that included shipping from China. I know there are better ones on the market, but to be honest, I find I get on really well with these, and the effects that I can get with them, I'm very happy with. The stitching chisels, or stitching irons as they're sometimes known, differ by the space in between the teeth, if you like. So this one here will make holes. It makes 7 holes to the inch. This one 9 holes to the inch. Generally use this side, and I would recommend that to a beginner as well. The stitching that I've always done has been using these cheaper ones, and I think it comes out all right. Mallet. When I first started, I used a wooden mallet, which was great, except that with repeated use it fell apart, it cracked, and I got through so many wooden mallets, and in the end I bought myself this poly mallet. I've had this a long time, but as you can see, it's taken a lot of wear and it's got a bit of damage, but it still works just as well as it did. That was quite expensive to buy. This is just as good. This is a rubber mallet from a camping shop, and again, it works just as well. I use these in my classes when I'm teaching. What you want is something with a bit of weight to it, so it's not doing so that the mallet's doing some of the hard work, you know. The only thing I wouldn't use would be a metal hammer, because you'll damage your tools. So again, no huge expense on that. Okay, so you've cut your leather strap out. Let's just say we've cut our leather strap out, and we want to make a line round the side, like here, to show where to start stitching. This would be the traditional tool. This is called the saddler's creaser. The little wing nut at the side makes it narrower or wider, depending on what you want. And you can see that there. It just runs round the outside like that. It's not an expensive bit of equipment, but all these things add up, and you could get by with a set of these compasses with the double pointed compass. So you know, it doesn't make quite the same, but it does make a very serviceable line to guide you as to where to put your stitching iron, you know. So that's something that you could use if you didn't want to go straight out for one of these. This is a quite handy nice little handy tool. Again, it's not essential, but it does make a nice effect. It has a little tiny little hole, a little blade at that end. I'm not sure if you can see, but you'll see what it does. It press it along the leather, and instead of pushing a groove, it actually cuts a little worm of leather out. See if you can see that little worm of leather coming out, which just adds a more defined line, and it's quite handy for stitching because the stitches will sink into that hole, which means they'll lay flush with the rest of the leather. But it's not an expensive piece of kit, and it does make a nice effect. It's not essential. Another nice little tools would be the edge bevelers. Okay, again, not essential, but some projects could use an edge beveler. For example, a belt. If you were making a belt, it would be kind of more comfortable for the person wearing if you could make that edge a little bit rounded and that edge a little bit rounded, so the overall effect was of a more rounded effect, which slips through buckles and there's nothing to cut into somebody's skin. This literally just takes off the edge takes the corner, if you like, off the edge of the leather. You can see like that. So it's a useful tool. You do get different sizes of these, so the size difference would be in the jaws there, if you like, so that would shave off a wider angle, if you like, off the corner than say that one would. Okay, needles. So needles, a lot of people think that the needles for Leathercraft must be very, very sharp. They're not. It's the opposite. They're actually very blunt, because you'd have to have superhuman strength to push a sharp needle through leather. The whole point is that you make the holes first using either one of these or an awl. So once you've made your hole, your needle really just has to be something that carries the thread through. So they're just nice, pretty blunt, compared with sewing needles, blunt anyway. That's probably the most recognisable. I can get it on the camera. Most recognisable name. And number 2, saddler's harness needles. That's what they're called, saddler's harness needles. Number 2, you come in packs of 25, just for a few pounds. That's all, just a few quid. They're not expensive. Thread, loads of threads to choose from. So the cheapest, and definitely one to think about when you're starting, would be the kind that you can get from your local horse equestrian supply centre, somewhere that sells stuff for the horse, because it can be sometimes called plaiting thread that they can use for plaiting the horses up with. But this would be, I think it's cotton. This is a bit too thin. This is for an industrial sewing machine that sews, amongst other things, leather and horse rugs. I find that too thin for what I use. So the stuff that I use most often is Ritzer tiger thread, and mostly I use it's 1mm. 1mm Ritzer tiger thread, which you can get online in a wonderful array of colours. So there's 1mm. Sometimes you can get 0.8 or 0.6. That they're all fine. And this is actually this Ritzer tiger thread is actually plaited. I don't think the camera will pick this up, but each thread is actually made up of lots of other little threads, and they're plaited, and it's slightly waxed as well. So it's lovely to work with. It's extremely strong. This is the I use this for my projects which don't require strength, like my wallets and things like that. But I also use this thread for leather repairs, for sewing things like girth straps onto saddles where a lot of strength is required. So you really can't get stronger than this. It's great stuff. Ritzer tiger thread, and you can get that online. Okay, piece of equipment which is extremely useful would be the saddler's clamps. Sometimes they're called Sometimes they're called clamps, sometimes they're called clams, sometimes it's a stitching horse or a stitching pony, but the gist is the same. Strong, put the light on that there, look. Something to hold the leather. It acts like as a third hand, if you like. So something to put your pieces of leather together that you're sewing and hold them still so that you can work with both hands. So yeah, I actually made these leather clamps, and I am really rubbish at woodwork, but I was able to do it, and it saves a lot of money because they're quite expensive to buy. 90 centimetre plank of pine, 2 of those, and then at the top, if you can see at the top, 2 little wedge shapes of hardwood. I think in this case I didn't use oak, and I fixed them so that the grain was going that way as opposed to that way. And when those are fitted, obviously they keep the jaws open that end, and then this end 4 strong screws, and then the little bits of oak there which create a natural spring, and they are incredibly strong. Can nips onto my thumb, and they're good and strong. So you can buy all kinds of saddler's clamps. These kind would be the strongest. You can get ones that sit on the tabletop, and they're operated, they open and shut with a little wing nut. I don't like them ever so much, to be honest, because the little wing nut only gives you so much grip, but if you're doing small projects, it's fine. But any kind of clamps will help. What else? A steel ruler, ideally with cork back, so it doesn't scratch the leather, and it helps to grip the leather. Some hole punch. This granite block. Again, this would be the sort of thing, if you can get hold of something like this, it's very handy, but it's not essential. What is more essential would be some kind of cutting board. I wouldn't use a wooden one because you will eventually crack it and split it, so just an ordinary self-healing polymat like this would be fine. I think that's more or less the basics of what you need to get started. With those tools, you can create an awful lot, really. Additional stuff you might want to look at if it's something that you feel like you need a lot of. If you're cutting a lot of straps, for example, a strap cutter can make the job a lot easier. But if you don't have one, a ruler is perfectly fine. Let's have another little scout through my tools. Okay, so what else have we got here? Excuse the mess in here. Tape measure. This little tool here. If you know somebody who's good at wood turning, they can easily make you something like this. It's very good for burnishing the edges. Which leads me to burnishing gum. This kind of stuff. Again, you can manage without, like manage with just a bit of wax, a little bit of beeswax. I always have a little chunk of beeswax handy, apart from when, oh it is, a chunk of beeswax, that helps to wax the thread. This is quite a handy tool, to be fair. Sorry about the dust. It's a skiver. So yeah, I like doing a bit of skiving. And it literally just shaves off the back of or the front of the leather to make it thinner. Okay, this is my little collection of swivel knives. So if you're wanting to carve details onto leather, carving any designs really, like that kind of thing, you will need one of these little knives. The good news is they're not ever so expensive. They usually come with a blade like that, but you can also get a filigree blade like this if you do more intricate work, which I do, especially when I'm carving letters and wording into leather. They come in generally one size, but you can adapt it to the size of your hand with the little wheel there to make it comfortable. And it just sits in your hand like this. So these two fingers here operate the barrel, and that's where the name comes from. It swivels, and then your finger sits in the saddle up here to hold it firm. And when you use it in an upright way like that, drawing it towards you like that, that's how it's operated. So it's a really nice tool. So any patterns like this have been created using the swivel knife, which you'll see on some of my other videos. The stamps over here, individually to buy them, they are quite expensive. What I would suggest anyone who's interested in starting leathercraft would be to keep your eye on eBay. You do get, quite often you get people clearing out their stock on eBay, and by far that would be a great way to add to your collection, and also to try out new tools as well. So you can see I've got quite a lot here. I've just added to them over the years. And that brings me finally to leather. What kind of leather? Well, if you're using the swivel knife and you want to do some leather carving, leather tooling, then you are going to need vegetable tan leather. It's leather that, as it says on the tin, has been tanned using a vegetable process, as opposed to using chromes and metals, things like that. So it's a little bit more expensive, I think, but a little goes a long way. And if you can buy large rolls like this, you get a lot of value. Sold in different widths, and you can also buy it in small pieces as well. If anyone who's living in the UK, if you can, I definitely recommend going on the Identity Leathercraft site. I'll put a link in the bio. It's a great little shop in Matlock in Derbyshire, and the beauty of their shop is they sell leather in small pieces as well, literally very small pieces, and also in large rolls as well. So vegetable tanned leather would be a great leather to start, a great all-round leather. And of course you don't have to keep it this colour. Vegetable tan leather accepts all kinds of dye, so it really is very versatile. Okay, I hope that's been useful. If there are any questions or you have if I've missed anything out, just shout in the comments. Okay, hope to see you soon. Bye bye.